We shift our focus to this story now. France, Germany and the United Kingdom have urged Iran to de-escalate tensions in the Middle East, as many expect Iran and its allies to attack Israel following the killing of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh. Professor of African Politics and International Relations in the Department of Political Sciences at the University of Pretoria, Christopher Isike, joins us now to discuss the latest call by the leaders of these countries for restraint as fears of a full-on regional conflict continue to grow. Good evening, Professor. Thank you very much for joining us on The Full View. So the three European countries' leaders have seen it necessary to call on Iran to exercise restraint. Do you see Iran heeding that call, especially after the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei ordered that Israel be punished?
Well, good evening, and thank you for having me. Look, there are internal divisions within Iran. The president seems to want to maintain some sanity, wants a very subtle response, but the Revolutionary Guard are hell intent on ensuring that they give a very strong response. So there's that tension within, and there was also this call between the German Chancellor and the Iranian president, where the plea was also made on behalf of these European countries for Iran to exercise restraint. So if the president holds sway, he may be able to listen to this cause. But I think the point that the Revolutionary Guard is making is whether those calls should not be made to Israel rather than to Iran.
Mm-hmm. So which voice is stronger currently now in Iran? Is it those of the radicals or the more moderate in this instance that are saying perhaps there should be a level of restraint? Which voice is stronger currently?
It's difficult to say at this point, but the fact that there's a discussion means that there is a strong voice for restraint. I think that even in the Gulf states meeting last week, the Iranians were persuaded to accept that a ceasefire right now in the Middle East, in Gaza, was much more important than any kind of emotive response to what Israel did by killing an Iranian visitor in Iranian soil, because that's one component, apart from the fact that the Haniyeh who was killed was a Hamas political leader. Mm-hmm. So I think that at the end of the day, the restrained voice will prevail, because there is really no need to respond at this time. They can pick and choose a time to respond. So the most important thing is to keep their eyes on the ball. But this is also assuming that Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is actually committed to a peace process or acting in good faith at all.
Mm-hmm. Now, many had expected that just after the news broke of Haniyeh's passing or killing, that there would have been some sort of a retaliatory attack. It didn't happen. Was it naive, though, of some to think that if ever there was going to be some sort of a strike, it wouldn't have happened immediately? If anything, it will happen when Israel least expects it.
Well, look, what would be a strike? It also has to be effective. A barrage of missiles to Israel that could be blocked by, anti-ballistic missiles are not necessarily helpful. I think the thinking is not to strike for the sake of it, but to carefully calculate, what is in the strategic interest of Iran as well, and also not to play into the hands of the Israeli Prime Minister, in trying to force a war between the United States and Iran. I think maybe common sense would have prevailed, and the old saying that he who lives to fight another day is wiser than the one who gets killed in the first battle, of any kind of war.
Professor, theories abound as to who exactly could have killed this Hamas leader. You just type his name, and there are a number of conspiracy theories, where some even experts have taken it as far as saying they're of the view that it could even be some within Hamas, because over time he had become viewed as somebody who had become more moderate. So he was less radicalized, a bit more removed from the real fighting that was taking place in the Middle East, in that specific, or at least in that area where most Hamas military leaders are. So in that instance, would you say there's any truth, or there is a big question mark that it could be Israel or it may not be Israel?
Well, the Israeli Prime Minister gave a press conference after these killings, and he didn't make reference to just the Hezbollah one, although he didn't specifically mention any of the two. But he said that we have hit them, we have struck two targets, we have hit them where it hurts. Have hit two targets actually. So when he says that without saying which targets they are, and considering that these are targets that just happened within days, he stopped short of saying that Israel is responsible. Yes, it's a possibility that Haniyeh was viewed as a bit moderate, but there was nothing he was doing that did not go through his senior, who has now replaced him, in that role. So it's not something that the way the Hamas is structured is not such that one person decides or stalls or pushes anything, right? It's a very complex hierarchical structure that goes through different sources of authority. So I do not think that he would be taken out in this manner and then just for Iran to now not foment trouble, because the thinking is that if Iran was not involved, if Hamas was not involved and Iran was not aware, Iran would have struck immediately. But that's not necessarily always the case, that an immediate strike indicates that that is the right response at that point in time.
Professor, thank you very much for your insights this evening. That's Professor of African Politics and International Relations in the Department of Political Sciences at the University of Pretoria, Christopher Isike.